Well, it's going to come as no shock to anybody that the cost of a Disney World or Disneyland vacation has increasingly gotten more expensive, especially since 2020. But Disney has seemingly been unfazed by this criticism, as they've shown many quarters of increased revenue. And even though the park attendance has lagged in terms of the overall attendance numbers, that they haven't had anywhere near the attendance they had in 2019 before the pandemic, and they've stated multiple times that their price increases are justified and that they stand behind them. But with Epic Universe looming, opening in just a few months from Universal Studios, myself and many others have wondered, surely Disney's getting concerned about some of the rhetoric out there about them. People openly talking about it's become too expensive to go to Disney for not only the cost of it, but what you get in return for it compared to years prior, seemingly not getting near as much for your money. And again, with Universal doing the things that they're doing, offering very, very strong competition to Disney, this is something that Disney is not used to. They've never been in this situation before, but this is the first time we've actually heard that Disney internally may be getting concerned about the high prices. And there's an article by the Wall Street Journal that talks about Disney is getting concerned about the high prices as guest intent to return drops. But we have an article here from Blog Make It. It sort of summarizes this article a bit here, as the Wall Street Journal one is pretty long. So we're going to go through this article here and get some thoughts on it. So hi, I'm Jared with Capture the Magic. It says a new report from Robbie Whelan of the Wall Street Journal paints an updated picture of price hikes at the Disney theme parks, the strain it puts on guests, and internal discussions at Disney on how to mitigate losing guests over pricing. Whelan worked in concert with touring plans to collect and present data on how much pricing is playing a role in the decisions of Americans to visit Walt Disney World. As Disney fans know, a Disney vacation has become more expensive and complicated after Disney Experiences chairman Josh D'Amaro, then CEO Bob Chapek, and other execs put in place new rules, pricing, and restrictions following the COVID-19 shutdowns. Some restrictions have been lifted for some guests, but Disney's most loyal fans, annual pass holders, still have to deal with a park reservation system that aims to restrict access above and beyond blockout dates already baked into annual pass tiers. It's still wild to me that they still have the park reservation system on some level, but yeah, annual pass holders still have it. It's and really too, you think about it, they even had at one point you couldn't buy an annual pass. Like they put a pause on buying new annual passes. This was under Chapek, but they kind of tried to create like this false scarcity of it. When Iger came back, they quickly got rid of it. But yeah, they were essentially operating as if they were the only game in town. I think further fueling a lot of people looking to go to Universal for these reasons. So they may have actually fueled their biggest competitor well before Epic Universe opened, but fueling their biggest competitor at that time as well. A big area where a cash grab has been undeniable is the billion-dollar skip-the-line service, now called Lightning Lane, previously Genie Plus. Pre-COVID, FastPass Plus was a free offering allowing guests to skip the line at some attractions throughout the day. Now the Lightning Lane Multipass is essentially the exact same service, but with a price tag. A Lightning Lane Premier Pass, the most expensive tier of Skip the Line service, maxes out at $449 per person per day. Other offerings, such as the removal of the Magical Express airport to hotel service, was a huge loss for Disney fans. The removal of previously free offerings, along with the continued introduction of price hikes, has made a Disney vacation significantly more expensive in a post-COVID world. I mean, I said it at the time as well. I think Disney had wanted to charge for the Lightning Lanes for a long time. And I remember hearing whenever, Disney was shut down for that period of time before they reopened, I was hearing from multiple people that Disney was really looking to revamp everything they were doing. And a lot of this was stuff they'd been wanting to do for a long time, but were worried about the backlash they would get for it. And I think they thought the cover of COVID and all these things was the perfect time to do these things, as they would have sort of a built-in, I guess you could say, excuse in a way to do it. And you can see here from the leak that came out in June about how much money they had made from Genie Plus at the time. And I don't know if they'll talk about this article or not, but I think it was from 2021 through 2024, they made almost $1 billion in the Genie Plus offerings. So they literally have, at this point in time, probably made over $1 billion from taking FastPass that was free, now charging for it, to making $1 billion on that. So anybody that was holding out hope that Disney is going to, eventually bring back FastPass as included in your vacation, I think that's going to show you right then and there, there's no way they're going to do it. Unless they got unless things got desperate enough to where they felt like they had to, you're not going to see somebody take a $1 billion revenue stream and go back on that. It's just, at this point, it makes them way too much money. Even with all the criticism they can get for it, they're just not going to do it. So it's concern with Disney. The report from the Wall Street Journal says that, quote, some inside Disney worry that the company has become addicted to price hikes and has reached the limits of what middle-class Americans can afford.
You don't say.
I would say those people inside of Disney are pretty smart. Those people, at least. The report says that internal discussions have become more frequent on if Disney is going too far with its pricing strategy. The report says that when Iger returned in November 2022, he was concerned that Disney was getting a reputation as being too expensive. He asked D'Amaro to come up with a list of things that the company could do to win back fans. D'Amaro reportedly offered up suggestions such as removing the parking fee at hotels, adding more dates to the lowest tier of ticket prices, and that it could freeze the annual price increases for tickets. Those are all pretty good things. Iger liked 2 out of the 3 suggestions, keeping annual price increases in place. Well, of course.
Never ceases to amaze me.
I've said, I'll give them credit. I was shocked when I saw them remove the parking fees at hotels, because basically every hotel does this. And I do love the Universal hotels, but them charging for parking, I hate. I hate it at any hotel. I hate parking fees, and I hate resort fees. I will give Disney credit on the hotel side of things. They don't charge for parking, and the price that you see is typically the price you pay. So in terms of that, I'm not saying the prices sometimes are wild, but at least you do have pretty straightforward pricing on that. But seeing it in relation to this, where that was sort of the consolation prize of like, well, okay, we'll do that, but we're not going to freeze annual price increases. Like, okay, not surprised by it, but it's kind of funny to kind of see what you've always sort of figured was the case, maybe in terms of like, I had said it would be a good gesture after they were getting backlash about the price increases, that be like, hey, we hear you. We're not going to increase fees for a year, maybe 2 years, or something like that. Obviously, they would still be making money, but as they said, some people said internally, they quote, "We're addicted to price hikes." It kind of fits into that, that description, I would say. Guest intent to return plummets. The report says that Disney's own internal surveys of guests visiting Walt Disney World and Disneyland saw a sharp downward trend starting in late 2023 for intent to return. Indeed, Disney's financial filings show that attendance at Disney's theme parks was flat in 2024 compared to 6% growth in 2023. Still, Disney Experiences posted record revenue and profits in 2024 thanks to an aggressive pricing strategy. Additional colors such as hotel bookings were flat in 2024 domestically at 85%, the same occupancy figure as 2023. In terms of guest spending, domestic parks saw a 3% uptick in 2024, and international parks were up 4%. The theme park admissions revenue was up 7% year over year, up to $11.1 billion in 2024 from $10.4 billion in 2023. The increase in revenue was 5% attributable to an increase in average ticket prices and 2% increase in attendance. Theme park admissions are the largest subsegment of the experiences line business, followed by hotels and cruises, and theme park food and merchandise. I mean, I've been saying all along, I think if you look at what Disney World has become, it was basically built off the middle class and people taking multiple trips, sometimes multiple times per year, going to Disney World. With the price increases, it's almost inevitable that people would either stop going just because it's gotten too expensive, or they just wouldn't go as much. Obviously, either one, it's going to be felt by Disney. So Disney focusing on the moment somebody walks through those gates, how much money can we get out of them? Yeah, you're going to make money that day or that week, whatever, that time period those people are on vacation. But are those people going to want to come back? That's the question. That's something that I felt all along that Disney has been very short-sighted about, because vacations a lot of times are very, I guess you could say, emotional. How did you feel about your trip? And if you feel like you were nickeled and dimed, or you remember going back in 2018, 2019, and then you went in 2024, it is not nearly the same experience. I mean, the cost alone is going to be way more. That's before you even get into talking about like maintenance and things that are happening in the parks, but it's not the same experience now that it was even back then. So people going are, again, they're going to spend money, but do they want to go and spend that money again? Do they think it was worth it? And this is the problem I think Disney's falling into, is people not wanting to go back or not in any rush to go back. Maybe they used to go yearly and they're like, oh, we'll go again in like 3 or 4 years. Like, these are things that will eventually start to hit Disney, and we may be in the beginning phases or maybe right in the middle of people not wanting to go back or not go back as much. And it's hard to argue that it's not on the price side of things. The cost of visiting Disney. In terms of the cost of a Walt Disney World vacation, data from Touring Plans says that a typical 4-day visit to Walt Disney World has jumped $1,000 in 5 years, adjusted for inflation. The data collected by Touring Plans tallies the cost of a Walt Disney World vacation at $4,200 roughly. The report says that almost 80% of that jump is for things that were previously free.
What did you say?
While 20% of the cost came from Disney rising prices faster than the rate of inflation. I want to read that again. The report says that 80% of that jump in price is for things that were previously free. That's wild. I mean, it does speak to the vacation destination that Disney World is, even to this day that it is, but what it has been historically. But 80% of the cost of a Disney World vacation's price hikes, or essentially the jump in price, is for things that used to be free. That's crazy. I've never seen that stat before. That is wild. Disney disagrees. I'm sure they do. The report says that Disney argues that the same family of 4 could enjoy a 4-day vacation for as little as $3,000 before food and transportation costs, noting that guests don't need to purchase the Lightning Lane passes to have a good time. In a poll for Wall Street Journal, Harris Poll asked more than 2,000 households about experiential vacations, and 74% said that experiences like cruises and theme parks are financially out of reach. For respondents who said that they're cutting back on Disney vacations, 59% cited cost. 27% said they were no longer interested in visiting Disney theme parks, while 14% said they didn't have the time. Disney said the poll was flawed and misleading. I'm seeing a trend here where anytime someone has data to show, hey, people aren't liking this and that, Disney disagrees, which actually goes very much what I've heard from people. I've heard many people talk about they've actually talked with Disney execs before and gave them feedback, and they will just openly argue with them and tell them that they're wrong. They're probably not wrong. If I were to guess that they were saying, hey, a family of 4 could go on vacation for as little as $3,000 before food and transportation costs if they travel in a certain period of time. The issue is that not everybody can travel at very specific times. So Disney has now priced the parks where more high demand times are more expensive. They've done the surge pricing, if you will. So they're probably not wrong, but at the same time, there's probably a very select few days out of the year in which you can do that, which is why they keep those lower end ticket prices. They basically haven't touched those. They keep those low, but if you look at the dates, those are available. I can't remember off the top of my head how many there are, but there's not that many of those days out there where it's at that price. But they can say that you can go for as little as, whatever that price is. It's a marketing strategy on some level. But technically, they're probably not wrong. But to act like that at any point in time you could travel for that much is just ultimately not going to be true. And Touring Plans, to their credit, and Lynn tested at Touring Plans, they're very good with data. I do trust their numbers. And so I do believe them when they say that, the Disney World vacation cost is $4,200. It's probably on average, to be my guess, or during like a typical time period when most people travel, whereas Disney's going to select the cheapest days you could possibly do it, even if it is only a week out of the year or very few days out of the year where that pricing is available. In June 2024, a Lending Tree survey of 2,000 families found that 45% of families visiting Disney with children went into debt to pay for the vacation. A rather stunning part of the Wall Street Journal report said that a Disney Vacation Club survey this fall asked guests how likely they were to, quote, be receiving, managing an inheritance, or to experience the, quote, loss of a family member or loved one over the next 5 years.
How dare you?
I mean, let's be real. You're just going to ask that because you're assuming these people would have an influx of cash coming in. I've never heard of a company actually asking that question before. I don't know. That seems in bad taste to ask that. Like, oh, well, you understand you might be mourning the loss of a family member, but, would you like to tell us if you're expecting a loss sometime soon? And does that person have money? Because if they do, we would like to help you get over your loss by perhaps buying into DVC. That's kind of the way, at least that seems to me, that's kind of the way they're asking that. Risk of losing repeat visitors. While a Disney theme park vacation is still a rite of passage for many American families, the risk of losing repeat visitors starts the minute guests add up their expenses. Back in December, Disney CFO Hugh Johnston spoke about the importance of ensuring that a Disney parks vacation is part of the habit of families and not a one-time splurge. Quote, "We want to be able to tap into those families and build the habit of coming to Disneyland or Disney World, not one time, but multiple times," Johnston said. In a written statement to the Wall Street Journal, DiMauro talked about the importance of creating not only a memorable vacation, but an affordable one too. "The number one thing we hear from millions of guests who visit our parks each year is how much a Disney vacation means to them. And we intentionally offer a wide variety of ticket, hotel, and dining options to welcome as many families as possible, whatever their budget. We also know that in inflationary times, it's especially important to give families ways to save on their visits." Further, Disney said that its theme parks are within financial reach for the middle-class families, that it offers a wide range of pricing and products to ensure that it stays that way. Year-round promotions also play a big part of Disney's pricing strategy. Disney says that the majority of respondents in its own internal guest survey say that it offers good to great value for the price paid. That said, Disney says that it is also dealing with the growing cost of operating the theme parks due to inflation. Disney also uses pricing to manage attendance, making it more expensive to visit during high demand periods. I mean, none of this is shocking. We've talked about this in other videos as well. The pricing obviously is going to deter a lot of people from going. And it seems, in my opinion, I think Disney has been going after this short-term price increases and these cash grabs to essentially make money now at the, I guess harvesting money now versus like waiting in the long run. And I think it has hurt the long-term people coming back more often. I think they're definitely looking at people like, how much money can we make on each person coming through the gates immediately, and not really thinking much about, do these people want to come back? Do they feel like it was worth it? And listen, all businesses want to make money, and Disney has had the market share to do this, especially in the past. But the way that they operate right now, they kind of operate as if there's no other competition whenever there's major competition for them. So not only does Disney, it's seemingly, as Wall Street Journal says, Disney themselves has become concerned, at least some people inside the company have become concerned about the price hikes as the guest to intent to return drops, which would go against what Disney says, is that their internal survey shows that people say it's worth it. But if Disney's becoming concerned about this at a time period where they have way more competition than they used to. I mean, Universal historically has not been major competition for Disney. It wasn't until the Wizarding World came online where it really proved that Universal could do these well-themed lands, and they were really able to up their game, that they became more of a competition for Disney. But obviously with Epic Universe coming online just in a few months, Universal is going to see a massive increase into their attendance. I guess the question is going to be, and Disney's hoping, that people that go to Epic Universe also go over to Disney World. Now, they've had a little bit of different messaging about this. They said in the past that they anticipate seeing a bump from Epic Universe, but in their most recent earnings report, Hugh Johnston said they might see a small impact from Epic Universe. So they're kind of changing their wording as this goes along. I don't think they necessarily know how it's going to go, if people are going to go from Universal over to Disney, or if they are, or if they go as much as they have in the past. I think a lot of it is up in the air. I think the only thing for certain is that Universal is going to see a major increase in their attendance this year. I think that's undoubtedly going to be the case. How it affects Disney, we'll have to wait and see on that one. But the fact that you're seeing this from seemingly people internal at Disney asking this question while you have major competition, not the best of timing. And I would say, if they didn't see this coming, in terms of, if it seems like Disney wasn't recognizing Universal as major competition, they've sort of put that out there that Universal is trying to play catch up to them, and they're not worried about Epic Universe and all these things like that. Whether or not they believe that or not, that was the messaging they were putting out there. Now, if they did believe that and they literally were just like, we're not worried at all, we're Disney. And I think that could be true. That's a lot of, I think some of the higher ups at Disney have this viewpoint that they're Disney. Like they don't have to worry about anything because we've always been the theme park king, especially in Orlando. It's not the same that it was even 10 years ago. Universal is a much bigger player now, and they're gaining confidence, and they have the backing of Comcast with a lot of money in a time period where they're raising prices like crazy. Their in-park maintenance is not what it used to be. We've seen a lot of infrastructure issues at Disney with the sewage leaks all over property. We saw just the other day with the partial ceiling collapse over in Soaring. So not only has there been price increases, but it doesn't seem like there's been price increases that have tangible evidence of, park improvements or ride improvements. It seems like a lot of the things with Disney are getting worse in terms of maintenance and just, day-to-day park operations, like trash cans overflowing. Like that's something that you didn't used to see a lot. And now it's pretty common when you see trash cans sort of overflowing with trash at Disney. I think it's not that you see it everywhere, but it's much more common to see it now than you would have even, say, 10 years ago. So typically, like if you're raising prices, but you're giving a lot more value in return, you can make those justifications. But what you get in return for that, I think it's very noticeable, especially if you've been going to Disney for a very long time, as you just notice these things and your willingness to go back whenever you can remember going in 2010 and 2018 and remembering what it was like. And then you go now and it's more expensive than it's ever been, and you're not getting near as much for your money. Not many people are going to just be knocking down the door to go back, even if they love Disney. And there's plenty of people. Listen, we've been running our podcast for 8 years. There's a lot of people that listen to our show that have been going to Disney much longer than we have. And, they'll openly say, yeah, we've been going to Disney multiple times per year, but we only go like once per year now or once every other year now. It's just not worth it to go that much. And and also just the cost of it. Even if they wanted to go, it's like, well, it's just so expensive now. We can't justify the cost to do that. And I think this is with the price increases at some level. I guess the question would be, are they raising prices enough to offset the people not wanting to come as often? I have a hard time believing that they probably are. And you're already seeing attendance has essentially stalled. They're making more money just because it's almost like the movie theaters. If you look at the tickets and ticket pricing, tickets are more expensive now. So when you see a movie make, say, $1 billion, it's being sold on much fewer tickets than it would have been, say, 10 years ago for $1 billion movie. So essentially, Disney and also movie theaters are charging more money to fewer people, coming through the gates. That's sort of what's happening here is you have less people coming through the gates, especially compared to 2019. I think Magic Kingdom in 2019, the attendance was like over 20 million guests, I believe. So they haven't hit anywhere near the attendance numbers since then. But during that period of time, obviously they started charging for things that didn't used to charge for. So they've made up the difference in attendance with charging money for things that used to be included for free. So they've made more money. And I think that's what they're much more concerned about is the money side versus the attendance side. But at some point you have to ask, is this a sustainable business model going forward? I think historically it would be on some level if Disney was just competing with themselves. But the thing you throw in this equation that has never been there before is Universal Studios. And this is why I always say competition is good, because with competition, consumers get options. And so if people look at Disney and they say, it's just getting too expensive, they go over to Universal. And while Universal is not cheap, it is cheaper than Disney on many levels, especially if you get into annual passes. I'm not saying Universal is a budget vacation destination, but it is in many ways going to be a much cheaper trip than going to Disney World, even with Epic Universe. So you offer, competition. They go over to Universal. Not only is it many times cheaper, but it's a much more relaxed vacation. And that's the thing about Disney too. The costs are one thing, which are growing and growing, but it's a very complicated vacation destination. If you don't have everything planned out about a Disney trip, you're not going to have a great time. And it's really easy to go to Disney, especially if you've never been before, to feel like you didn't get your money's worth because you didn't do all the planning involved, because it's just a complicated trip. You got to be on your phone all the time. If you want to use the multi-pass, you got to plan things out on your phone. There's just a lot of things that go into a Disney trip that has seemingly only gotten more complicated as time has gone on. Whereas you go to Universal, it's much more relaxed. You could still walk into that park to this day not really be on your phone much and just enjoy the park if you wanted to. If you want to get Express Pass, you can. That's always been consistent over there. It's not cheap. It's way cheaper than Disney's Premier Pass, but it's never been a cheap thing to get the Express Pass. But if you do get it, it works very well. You just walk up and use it, and you can, as many times you want to go on something, you can. And if you don't want to do it, like, you don't have to. It's just much more of a relaxed theme park experience. And I think for a lot of people that have gone over to Universal, they've been very much like, oh, this is kind of nice. Like, it's similar to Disney. It's different. It has its own ways about doing it. But I think that has helped Universal grow a lot, is a lot of people, the Disney pricing has kind of pushed a lot of people toward Universal, and then experiencing their hotels, their theme parks, and saying like, oh, this isn't bad at all. This is pretty nice. And especially with Epic Universe coming, a lot of people are even more excited about that. And so Disney, in the midst of all this, not only with their own pricing issues, having to deal with competition, this is something they never have had to deal with before. I mean, Universal has never been a competition for them on this level. And how they combat this the next few years is going to be really interesting. How this goes for Disney this year, later in this year, is also going to be really interesting. I think they're going to maybe take a pretty significant hit from Epic Universe, if I were to guess. Because again, Universal they're trying to get people to stay for 3, 4, 5 nights, as they've typically been a 2-day destination for the most part, an add-on to a Disney trip. But with Epic Universe, that does change the equation, where you're getting people to try and stay on property for 3, 4, 5 nights. That's not something people have typically done with Universal. So if they do that, and let's say they still go to Disney but they only go for like 1 to 2 days. They go over to maybe Magic Kingdom and they go over to Epcot. But they don't, I think Animal Kingdom is going to be the park that gets hit the most, considering it's under major construction and it's already been a park that has been seen declining attendance for years now. I think, that's undoubtedly going to continue to happen at Animal Kingdom. But if they do see a hit from Epic Universe opening, like, how do they respond to this? I don't think they're going to decrease ticket prices openly, but I think they're going to continue to see more pretty aggressive discounts. I think you could see that for the next few years, considering at the same time, basically all of the Disney parks outside of Epcot are going to be under heavy construction during the next 3 to 5 years. So not only does your biggest competitor have a brand new theme park opening and you've been raising ticket prices, and they still said they plan to raise ticket prices this year, even with the parks under construction, you're going to have major construction in all these parks. That is typically a deterrent to people visiting when there's major construction going on, because even if people didn't care about Epic Universe, a lot of these people that were going to go on a Disney trip may just say, you know what, we'll just wait until this stuff is done, and then we'll go experience the new stuff. So that is something that could, not only could Epic Universe impact Disney, but their own construction could impact them, just from people saying, we're just going to wait until this new stuff is done before we go back. It's going to be really, really interesting to see how this plays out this year. I'm very much keeping my eye on this, because I think the earnings reports are going to be really interesting. I think a win for Disney during this time period is their attendance isn't impacted. They just kind of stay steady. I think that would be a win for them, because I think undoubtedly Universal is going to see 35-40% increase in their attendance, undoubtedly. So Universal obviously is going to continue to eat into market share for the next few years. If Disney sees a decline in their attendance, and depends on how much of a decline, it's going to be really, really interesting to see how Disney responds. And I think the only thing they can respond with, considering they already have all these things under construction that they announced at D23, is just going to be on pricing. That's the only thing they're going to be able to do, is offer massive discounts, because they're going to have shows and parades and things. They may have a Bluey meet and greet, but they're not going to be able to get new offerings online quick enough to impact the short-term attendance, outside of just trying to basically entice people to come over based off price only. And they're already offering pretty significant price, discounts this year. So you could see them even more going forward. So that is something to keep an eye on. If you see them announce even more price discounts later into the year, that's a pretty good indication that they're seeing a hit from Epic Universe, and that they're trying to entice people to come over. But I just thought it was an interesting article, because, obviously a lot of outlets have talked about the price increases. I mean, we've talked about the price increases, but it's not often that you see an article where they talk about people inside of Disney growing concerned about the price increases. And what I think really has gotten them, it's one thing to have, people complain about price increases but still go. And on some level that is true. But when you talk about guest intent to return dropping, that's, I think, where it starts getting people's, attention inside of Disney, because that, again, is where their bread is buttered, is people returning on repeat trips and repeat visits. And once that starts drying up, or not even drying up completely, but just slowing down, that is whenever it will start to affect them a lot. In general, I think I would sum it up by saying the Disney parks experience was built on getting you addicted to the feeling of going to Disney and what that really did on an emotional level and wanting you to come back. That is what they were built on. And seemingly since 2020, that shifted away from that mindset to just basically extracting as much money as possible the moment a guest steps onto property. And I think it's very evident if you've been going to Disney for a decent period of time, you can kind of feel that. But that essentially, I think, is the shift over time as not thinking about wanting people to have repeat visits. Again, in my opinion, that will make you more money in the long run. If someone comes to your parks 5, 10, 15 times in a 5-year period versus 1 or 3 times, I think you could see where you'll make more money off of people having repeat visits. And not only that, it's also going to show that those people are happier with their decisions and want to keep coming back. I think what a lot of people experience now they spend the money, and they're not necessarily the happiest about doing it. And the thought about going back, a lot of people at the very least are saying, well, at least we can try something different. I don't know if I want to go back because I didn't really feel like we got the money out of that. And then you just multiply that over enough people as time goes on, and then you start seeing, again, a decline in the people wanting to return. And I think this is the major issue you have here. And I've always felt Disney at some point with this mindset was going to hit a wall. And I don't know if they've hit that wall yet, but I do think, again, with Epic Universe, with the competition, with their own price issues that they're even noting internally here, at some point, this concept, this idea of the current pricing strategy with Disney is going to hit a wall. And I think the real question is just going to be, what happens? What do they do when they clearly have hit that wall? And I'm not saying they have yet, but when they do, what do they do then? Because at the same time, again, you're going to have a new CEO come into the mix. What's that person going to bring to the table in terms of the parks? Is it going to be somebody that understands theme parks at all? There's a lot of questions about the things that Disney has been doing and how they're going to operate in the future on this new horizon, which is the new reality of the Disney parks in Orlando, is simply the fact that they're not the only player in town. And that's not going to change anytime soon. Universal is now, upping their game with Epic Universe and becoming a theme park vacation destination in their own right, even outside of Disney. And so for the longest time, Universal essentially survived off of people going to Disney and also going over to Universal. And on some level, they both will always coexist with each other on that level. But Universal is definitely making it a play where they can exist on their own offerings and not having to be something that is added on to a Disney vacation. How does Disney adjust to this new reality of the competition that they have? And not only that, but also their own pricing and how their longtime fan base, many of them have been turned off by the things that they have changed since 2020. And is Disney able to get that feeling back? Are they able to rekindle that type of, I would say a lot of people, again, the passion that people had for the Disney parks, are they able to rekindle that? I don't know. Many times you can say it is very difficult to go back. And once you kind of lose that, are you able to regain that? I think there's a lot of questions about that. But ultimately, that's kind of where I would sum that up. And I say going into the next few years, it's going to be very interesting to watch how this plays out between not only just Disney's own stuff they have going on with their parks and the pricing and all the things you could say about that, but also you add in the competition with the Universal, how the crowds react to that, how that affects Disney. That's a whole other ball game in and of itself, but it is going to play into the greater vision of things here. And I will be watching very carefully going into this year how this all plays out. I'm very intrigued by it. And, I have to wait and see how it plays out. But I do think that this article brings up some very valid points. And obviously, it seems like even internally at Disney, there are some people that have been noting for a while that the price hikes may be getting a little too aggressive. And perhaps these need to be reined in a bit. I don't know if anybody read this article and thought it was a shocking article to read. I was more or less shocked that there were people internally at Disney that had expressed concerns, which I'm glad to hear that. It just seems like the people that need to be the ones concerned about this, i.e. Bob Iger, aren't necessarily concerned about that, I suppose. But At least there are some people inside the Disney company that do seem to be concerned about this. Either way, we'll have to wait and see how all this plays out. But either way, that's going to be it, though, for this video. If you like this video, please like it and subscribe to the channel, as we do lots of coverage here of Universal Studios, Epic Universe, Disney World, and pop culture. And let us know in the comments, what do you think about this article? And until next time, we will see you in the parks.